Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. USC and Lincoln Riley continue some real momentum on the recruiting trail. Monday afternoon, a fascinating commitment. Three-star offensive lineman John Fifita, standing at 6'6", 350 pounds, committing to USC. Two things stand out right away. One, California kid, right? And this is something that we've talked about for the last really couple of years with this USC program. And it is, if USC under Lincoln Riley gets back to where they belong in the college football landscape, it looks like them dominating the state of California on the recruiting trail. And you never really saw that during Lincoln Riley's first couple of years. And then something has just changed in the 2026 class. California kids want to come to USC, and USC is making a massive push in the state to land the best players in the state. And you're seeing alignment too, which I think is really important. I mean, if you follow USC's social media pages, they are pushing the narrative that the best players in the state of California come to play for USC. And you are seeing that play out on the recruiting trail where you have now 8 out of 12 commitments in the 2026 class being from California kids. Now, one, it's just massive to kind of dominate the state once again. But I think the second thing that stands out is you're hearing a lot of noise from opposing fan bases on Twitter, on the message boards, talking about USC holding on to this class. Because if you USC fans remember, 12 months ago, there was a lot of momentum for USC on the recruiting trail as well. Guys like Justice Terry, guys like Isaiah Gibson. The difference here is we knew when Justice Terry and Isaiah Gibson or Drake Stubbs as well, there's a laundry list of guys who are examples of this. We knew when those guys committed to USC, it was going to be awfully hard for USC to kind of keep that commitment and sign those kids come December. When you have these kids committed from the state of California, it all of a sudden becomes way easier to have these kids sign with your program come December. And so all this momentum, it feels like it's real this time. And it feels like it's going to stick until December when these kids are ready to sign. That's what stands out the most. Now, when you talk about a guy like John Fifita, it starts with 6'6", 350 pounds. He is a massive human being. You were going to see that on the film. But what stands out to me a little bit, and I'll be the first one to admit, he was not on my radar 48 hours ago. And so I did some work on him this morning. Impressive athlete for the size. Now Benny Wiley is probably still going to have to do some work getting that body right once he gets to USC. But it's very intriguing to see a guy that, with the size that he has at 6'6", 350, playing right tackle at the high school ranks, it really shows some impressive athleticism, pretty damn light on his feet for that size. That's what stands out the most. And I think my question is, what happens when he moves to guard when he gets to USC? Because that's where he's at his best. When he's in those kind of phone booth situations where he can just put his hands on opposing defensive linemen, he is overwhelming with the size and power that this kid brings to the table. And so I'm kind of intrigued. I want to get into a little bit of the film, talk about where USC is going in this 2026 class. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the USC fans, one, I apologize. I'm down in Florida, left the USC commitment sweatshirt up in Rochester, New York. So I apologize that the USC commitment sweatshirt is not on, but I can't thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. The amount of USC fans who've been dialed in, engaged over the last couple of weeks as we talk this program on the recruiting trail, it's been a blast for me. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, we say this every time, buckle in, because it looks like it's going to be a fun next couple of weeks for this program on the recruiting trail going forward. Without further ado, let's get into John Fifita. And again, I want to start with the film because, one, you just see how big this kid is. And what stands out to me is look at him climb to the second level. I mean, he one has no problem getting out of his stance, which I know kind of sounds silly. But when you see a lot of these really big offensive linemen who are committing to programs out of high school, when they have this kind of size, oftentimes they struggle to fire out of their stance and generate a lot of power. Not a guy like John Fifita. I mean, he climbs to the second level, and when you see him engaged with an opposing defender, it's wraps because he's just so big. He's so powerful. He does what he wants. with guys at the point of attack. That's what stands out to me the most. And you continue to work through the film and say, look at the big dog get out in space, light on his feet when he's engaged with defenders. He's just burying them into the dirt. That's what stands out the most. A lot of the first couple of reps you see on this film is him operating in space. And he's really putting on a nice show in terms of the functional athleticism that this kid has. I mean, one, he's a massive, massive human being, and he is moving out in space, and he's playing with a little nasty too. He's going to take this guy right into the Gatorade coolers on the sideline. It's what you want to see. I mean, you want to build a program that has these kind of guys on the line of scrimmage. That's what stands out the most. You continue to work through the film and you see one really powerful kid, and number two, he's a really solid athlete for the size. This is a really impressive play. We're going a little jet sweep here. He's got to get to the inside shoulder of number 31, which is kind of a hard block. You got to be an athlete to be able to do this, and he does. I mean, he fires out of his stance and executes this block, which, 6'6", 350, firing out of your stance and reaching that inside shoulder. I want to go back. And he gets out of his stance really well and does what he needs to do. That is not something that someone 6'6", 350 should be able to do at high school, and he does it pretty dang routinely. Big fan of John Fifita. Big fan of just betting on a guy that, one, is really big, but also kind of displays that functional athleticism and explosiveness that you want. It's a big offensive line. Look at that center, too. Big dog. Again, upper body strength's really big time. I like it a lot. And you look at USC in 2026, you scroll up to the top, the number one class in the country. And again, to me, it feels different. I think there's a very real shot that USC signs a top 3 class in the country. And you start looking at, all right, if USC can sign this elite caliber class in 2026, continue to win football games in the 2025 season, that's how we build this thing up back to where it belongs. Where USC was the last 2 years, it wasn't a, hey, we're going to snap our fingers and immediately become a dominant team in college football again. It starts with getting everything right off the field, front office, coaching staff. USC has done that. And now it starts with getting the talent in the building. USC is currently doing that. And it ends with kind of performing on the football field. And if USC shows a step in the 2025 year, holds on to a top 3 class in the country, signing in 2026, that's how you get this snowball rolling back at USC. And I think what's so fascinating about talking about a program like USC and why is this different from some other programs that have momentum is the ceiling for USC as a program is about as high as any team in the country. It might be as high as any team in the country. So they're not only going in the right direction, they're going in the right direction to a spot where you can really be one of the dominant forces in college football, because we've seen USC be there at points in their history as a program. One more name to kind of monitor: Bot Maliatalo. Was committed to Oregon. We broke down the commitment when he committed in December. This is an intriguing one to keep your eyes on. He committed to Oregon as a defensive lineman, wants to play offensive tackle when he gets to the collegiate ranks. The tackle film is there, and at 6'4", 275, 77-inch arms, he's a guy that'll need a year at offensive tackle. But you talk about these recruiting battles between USC and Oregon that we're seeing play out all over the West Coast. These are the type of commitments where you're looking to change the tide, winning these kind of ones. And now Bot's available. He's going to take an official visit to USC coming up in the summer. Another name to monitor for USC. And I think the most fun part, at least for myself, is another name to monitor. Like, add that to the list of 60 really intriguing names specifically in the West Coast that USC is looking at. There is something that seems real about what USC is doing in this 2026 class, but not only in 2026, it seems real in terms of where this program is going. Really going to be fun to cover this team the next couple of weeks and months. We got spring ball kicking off at the end of March. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.